this is take two. I realized that after I finished the first time that my streaming had stopped. At some point about midway, my phone is being more and more cantankerous, and so I apologize for that. So this will be take two, and I'm not certain exactly where it cut off. So anyway, with the topic of heaven, it is a very misunderstood topic. A lot of what we think we know isn't actually in Scripture, and with a lot of confusion and a lot of misconceptions, it's always best to go back to the book. We are people of the book, and if in doubt, go to the book, go to the instructions. So the term heaven is used, if I remember correctly, in the ESV 492 times, which is a bunch. That's an awful lot of uses of the English word heaven or heavens in the Bible. But what does it mean? The word heaven or heavens translates two different words primarily from the Bible. In the Old Testament, it's the Hebrew word shemayim, and that's actually a plural term. The I am is your tip that it's plural. So in the creation, Genesis 1:1, Bereshit barak Elohim et hashemayim, the heavens. And then God telling Abraham, your descendants will be like the stars of the heavens, and the birds of the heavens. That's how it's used in the Old Testament. It refers to the sky. It refers to the heavens as in the universe, to look up and you see the stars. And of course, the ancient Hebrews had a very different view of cosmology than we do. They were limited by the naked eye, and so their concept of what the universe was like was just very different. In the New Testament, we find the term heaven being used to translate a Greek word oranos, and that is actually where the planet Uranus gets its name. Uranus, and the Greek word is Ouranos, I think. But Oranos, and that's very similar. It's almost synonymous with the Hebrew term shemayim. So those are the Hebrew and the Greek words that we find in the Bible being translated as heaven. So what do they mean? In the Old Testament, shemayim is used always to refer to the sky or to the universe. The sky, like I said, where birds are, where clouds are, or to the universe, the stars and the sun, the moon, etc. In the New Testament, we find those two uses plus another one. In the New Testament, Jesus talks about the birds of the heavens, but we also see the term heaven being used as a dwelling place of God. In the kingdom of heaven, Jesus refers to the kingdom of heaven so frequently in the Gospels, particularly the Gospel of Matthew. In Revelation 4, John sees a door open in heaven, and looking through the door, he sees the throne room of God. And in Revelation 4 and 5, we have these incredible visions of God's throne room. So heaven is used as refer to the sky. It's used to refer to the universe, the stars of the heavens. The heavens are telling the glory of God, as the psalmist said. Then it's used to refer to the throne room of God. And so what is missing from that? What is missing from that is a verse that says that we go to heaven when we die. That verse just isn't there, which of course will lead us into like what happens to the faithful when we die, and we're getting there. But the closest that we will see to something that says we go to heaven when we die is in John 14, and Jesus says that I go to prepare a place for you. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places, and if it were not so what I've told you, I go to prepare a place for you, that where I am, you may also be. And so we do have so we're told there that our eternal dwelling places with God. So we got that. But besides that, there is an awful lot of misconception about what happens to us. And some of what we commonly think is biblical is really more out of Greek philosophy or even Gnostic heresy than it is out of traditional Christian thought. So if you see stuff about the soul escaping the body when we die, no. We've got the old song, I'll fly away, like a bird from prison bars has flown, I'll fly away. Again, that's more Greek philosophy than it is Christian hope. So our hope isn't our souls escaping the body or our spirits escaping the body and going to heaven. Our hope is quite different from that. Now, if I've just poured cold water onto what you've thought about the afterlife, I apologize, but I'm getting to something that's a whole lot better. The Christian hope is not about souls or spirits, whatever, going to heaven in sort of a disembodied state. Our hope is in resurrection. That is our hope. And the New Testament is full of stuff about that. The New Testament is full of stuff about resurrection. It's really, really thin on stuff about going to heaven when we die. But it is full of resurrection. 1 Corinthians 15, the whole chapter is resurrection. And resurrection is almost by definition bodily. It's tangible. Transformed bodies that are no longer subject to decay or to death. Dwelling with Christ forever. Like I said, the entire chapter of 1 Corinthians 15, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, Paul says triumphantly. 1 Thessalonians 4, where people read into that a description of a rapture, but really, that's resurrection. At the last trumpet, the dead are raised. In Revelation 20 and 21, we see there resurrection. The dead are raised. In the words of Jesus in John 11, Jesus is going to comfort the grieving sisters on the death of the brother Lazarus. And Jesus says, your brother will rise again. And what is her response? I know he will rise at the resurrection of the just, or the resurrection of the last day. And then Jesus says, I am the resurrection and the life. And then he goes on to sort of prove the point by raising Lazarus from the dead. And so our ultimate hope is resurrection. And that is what we celebrate on Easter Sunday. That is our ultimate hope, not so much souls going to heaven. So that leaves open the question, what about when we die? Paul sort of mentioned this a little in Philippians 1. Philippians 1, Paul just refers to it as being with Christ. To being with Christ. And that's enough for me. When I die, I'm with Christ. And in exactly what state, I don't know. But if it's with Christ, I'm satisfied. then at the end, the dead are raised incorruptible. And that is our hope. That is our hope, that our bodies be transformed. That we transformed into something perfected. Something perfected, no longer susceptible to illness, or aging, or disease, or death. Revelation gives us numerous glimpses of what I would think heaven looks like. If you really want to know what it's like, if you read through Revelation, we find in there several images of saints praising God. Saints praising God, or martyrs praising God, and I take this to be sort of a timeless vision of saints in heaven, saints in the eternal state. So what is in the eternal state, what is our full-time occupation? Our full-time occupation will be praising the Lamb, be praising God. So if you don't like worshiping, you ain't going to like heaven. Hate to break it to you, but if you don't like worship, you're not going to like heaven, because that's what we'll be doing. That is our full-time occupation. We will be praising God. We are told that the sea will be no more. And I hope that that's not literal. I don't know, but I hope it's not literal, because I love the ocean. We know that at the end, heaven comes to earth. In Revelation 21, have this vision of the New Jerusalem coming to earth. Heaven comes to earth. And it's in that description of the New Jerusalem that comes to earth that we get, memorable phrases that we all know and love, like the pearly gates and the streets paved with gold. And we know that in the end, after heaven has come to earth, and in the resurrection, that we will be so close to God that we will not need a temple, because we dwell with God that closely. Temples will be unnecessary and obsolete. Churches will be unnecessary and obsolete, because we will dwell with God, with Christ, so closely. We know that in the end, we won't need street lights or sun or moon, because the light of Christ is the only light that we will need or that we will have. And that is some really good news on a Wednesday morning. And I hope that this video worked, and I'll find out in just a minute. Have a great rest of your day.